Have you ever sat in your favorite chair, cup of tea in hand, and felt like you could use something more than just a friendly wave from a neighbor? Maybe you've noticed that family, while loving and devoted, can't always be there in the exact way you need. Whether it's a late-night conversation about worries that keep you awake or someone to cheer you on as you try something new. After 60, life can feel like it's shifting under your feet, routines change, family dynamics evolve, and sometimes you realize you need pillars of support that stand stronger than blood ties alone. That's exactly what we're going to talk about today. In this conversation, let's explore 6 pillars of support that can gently lift you up, enrich your days, and remind you that you're never truly alone, even when the world seems to move faster than before. Imagine waking up on a bright Saturday morning and looking forward to a coffee gathering with friends who've become like family, people who understand your jokes, share your memories, and celebrate your small victories. Picture stepping into a community center where someone greets you by name, invites you to join a game of cards or a light exercise class, and then sits with you at lunch to hear about your grandchildren's latest adventures. Think about having a health professional or wellness coach, not a distant name on a prescription bottle, but a real person who remembers your favorite pastime and checks in whenever you're trying a new walking routine. These are the kinds of supports that, over time, can become more constant than relatives who live miles away or only visit on holidays. So, what are these pillars? We'll dive into them one by one, treating each as a cornerstone that keeps your life balanced, vibrant, and filled with connection. Together we'll talk about how to cultivate friendships that feel almost as comfortable as family, how to find and engage with community groups that lift your spirits, and how professional health and wellness networks can help you keep moving forward with confidence. Let's start at the beginning, with the first pillar. It begins with friendships. After 60, making new friends, or deepening old ones, can feel a bit daunting if you've spent decades caring for kids, focusing on a career, or putting others' needs first. You might wonder, who has time to start over, or how do I even meet people who share my interests? But here's the secret, when you shift from thinking I have to find friends to I get to enjoy time with new companions, everything changes. Instead of approaching socializing as a chore, imagine it as a chance to try something funny, interesting, or maybe even silly. Picture this, you decide to join a local walking group that meets every Wednesday morning at a park down the street. The first time you show up, you're a bundle of nerves, wondering if you'll fit in or if anyone will notice you. But there's Mrs. Nguyen, who has a gentle smile and asks about your favorite walking shoes, and Mr. Patel, who tells a joke about misplacing his glasses. He puts them on his head every week without fail. By the third time, you laugh at their jokes, share stories about your grandchildren, and realize that this group is more than just people who walk. They're people who listen, who notice if you haven't been around, and who genuinely care if you stay upright when you navigate an uneven sidewalk. Even if walking isn't your thing, think about other ways to spark of friendship. Maybe there's a book club at your local library full of people who love discussing the latest mystery novel or memoir. Maybe a crafting circle meets at the senior center where you live, where someone is always ready to teach you a new stitch or chat about your favorite colors. The goal isn't to reinvent your entire social life overnight. It's to notice those gentle nudges, a neighbor mentioning a group meeting, a flyer at the bulletin board, or a friendly call from a church member, and say yes whenever you can. Over time, these friendships can become your go-to when you need someone to celebrate with or simply listen. Once you begin to feel that warmth of friendship, the second pillar blossoms naturally, engaging with a broader community or social group. This isn't just about friendships one-on-one, it's about finding places where you feel a strong sense of belonging, where your presence matters, and where you have opportunities to give back too. When you plug into community groups, whether it's a gardening club, a local theater group, a charity committee, or even an educational class, you're not just passing time. You're building a support network that embraces your talents, interests, and years of experience. Think back to the last time you felt utterly absorbed in something you love. Maybe you were tending your rose bushes, feeling the sun on your face, and talking to neighbors who stopped by to admire your blooms. That simple act, day after day, connects you to the rhythm of neighborhood life. Now imagine turning that into something tangible, starting a small gardening circle, where people gather once a week to share seeds, swap tips on pruning, or plant flowers together for a community park. All of a sudden, your hobby isn't solitary, it's bringing joy to other people, the smiling faces of passers-by, residents of a care home who marvel at bright geraniums, or children who learn what a pollinator-friendly garden looks like. Maybe you've always loved music but never had an outlet to perform. A community choir could be that outlet. You walk into a rehearsal room filled with voices lifting a familiar hymn or a Broadway tune, and you realize how much you missed singing in harmony, hearing the alto or tenor parts around you. Even if you don't feel confident about hitting every note, there's support from the choir director, camaraderie in practicing together, and a tangible sense of purpose when you perform at a local fundraiser or holiday event. Suddenly, Sundays aren't just about church, they're about welcoming applause and sharing your voice. The beauty of community engagement is how it broadens your circle of connection beyond family gatherings and doctor appointments. It's the laughter over a shared potluck dinner, the elbow bump when someone nails a tricky passage in the choir, the chuckle when the gardening club's tulips bloom too early and everyone has to cover them with blankets. These experiences remind you that you're part of something bigger, that your passions and skills are valuable, and that, above all, you belong, even if your own family lives miles away or has busy schedules. As friendships deepen and community involvement grows, you'll likely notice that sometimes you need a helping hand or guidance that goes beyond a friendly chat or a group activity. That's where the third pillar comes in, professional health and wellness support that understands your unique stage of life. Yes, you have your trusted family doctor, but think for a moment. Would it be reassuring to have a team, maybe a wellness coach, a physical therapist, or a nutritionist, who talks to you specifically about staying active after 60, recovering from a minor injury, or adjusting to changes that occur as our bodies mature? When you invest in professional support, you're saying to yourself, I matter enough to seek expert guidance, and that mindset shift is powerful. For example, maybe you've been experiencing stiffness in your knees when you get up in the morning. It's easy to chalk it up to getting old, but what if a physical therapist shows you gentle exercises to strengthen the muscles around the joint, helping you walk more comfortably, maybe even join that walking group without flinching at every step? Or suppose you've noticed your cholesterol creeping up during your last checkup. Instead of settling for just keep taking your pills, you meet with a nutritionist who helps you discover tasty food swaps, like adding more colorful veggies to your plate or learning a handful of recipes that are delicious and heart-healthy. These professionals aren't just another medical appointment, they're partners in helping you feel strong, capable, and confident. They celebrate your small wins, whether it's walking an extra block or lowering your blood pressure by a few points, and they guide you through setbacks with empathy. Maybe you also decide to join a gentle yoga class taught by someone trained in senior-friendly movements. It's not an intimidating, twist-into-a-knot routine you see on late-night infomercials. Instead, it's a calm, supportive environment where the instructor offers modifications and checks if you have any joint concerns. As you flow through light stretches, you feel your back loosen, your breathing deepen, and your mind settle. You might even discover that wellness can include mindfulness practices, like guided breathing or meditation, that help calm the anxiety of sleepless nights or nagging what-if thoughts. Over time, you learn that health is more than a prescription bottle, it's a network of caring professionals and programs designed around you. What's truly motivating is that these first three pillars, meaningful friendships, active community involvement, and professional health partnerships, aren't isolated silos. They overlap and strengthen each other. A friend from a walking group might also attend the same yoga class, so you hold each other accountable. The nutritionist could suggest a healthy potluck dish for your gardening circle's next gathering. The physical therapist might remind you to check in with your community center's wellness fair, where you discover a free blood pressure screening. In weaving these pillars together, your life begins to feel more supported, more connected, and more affirming, without having to rely solely on relatives who may be busy or live far away. Now that we've explored how nurturing friendships, getting involved in community activities, and seeking professional health and wellness support can lay a sturdy foundation for life after 60, let's continue by looking at two more pillars that will keep you steady and inspired every day. As we settle into this conversation, imagine yourself at a cozy desk with a tablet or laptop in front of you. It might feel a bit unfamiliar at first. Perhaps you've heard friends talk about video calls, social media groups, or ordering groceries online, and you've wondered if it's really for you. Yet, this is where our fourth pillar comes in, embracing digital connection and technology. Now, I'm not saying you need to become a tech genius overnight or post daily selfies, far from it. Think of it instead as a gentle way to expand your support network into places you never imagined, so that on any given afternoon, you might tune into a virtual book club discussion, ask a question in an online hobby forum, or even chat face-to-face with a grandchild who lives across the country. You remember the days when you wrote letters by hand, mailing them off with a stamp and eagerly waiting for a reply. Well, digital tools aren't trying to replace that sentiment. They're here to make it faster and more flexible. For instance, if you've ever wished you could see your niece's face while you ask her about college life, a video call app can make that happen. Sure, there might be a learning curve, figuring out where to click, how to adjust the volume, or how to see everyone's face in a group chat, but once you get the hang of it, a smile from far away can feel just as warm as if they were sitting next to you. Consider joining an online community that speaks to one of your passions. Maybe you've been tending to bonsai trees for years, and there's a forum where enthusiasts from around the globe share tips on pruning, styling, and selecting the right soil. You could post a picture of your favorite little maple and receive feedback almost instantly, rather than waiting for the next local gardening club meeting. Or perhaps you love classic films. There are virtual screening rooms and discussion boards where folks gather weekly to chat about favorite scenes, actors, and nostalgic moments. These interactions aren't meant to replace face-to-face connections, but to supplement them, especially on days when getting out of the house feels overwhelming. You can hop online, share a thought, and realize that someone halfway across the world appreciates the same old Humphrey Bogart quips you do. Beyond hobbies, digital tools can help you manage daily tasks with greater ease, and that, in itself, can be its own kind of support. Think about telehealth visits. When you wake up early one morning with a stiff neck, instead of dragging yourself to a clinic, you might schedule a quick video check-in with your doctor or a physical therapist. They guide you through gentle stretches on screen, watching your posture and offering tweaks. Suddenly, managing minor aches becomes less intimidating because it's just a conversation away. Then there's online grocery ordering or prescription refills. You realize that technology isn't about isolating you at a screen. It's about freeing up your time and energy so you can focus on the people you love or the activities that spark joy. Of course, none of this happens if you don't take that first step. Maybe a friend or family member can sit with you and show you the ropes, logging into a video call, finding the link to a community forum, or downloading an app for medication reminders. And remember, there's no shame in asking for help more than once. A few chuckles over forgotten passwords or accidentally hanging up on someone might even add to the fun. Over time, you'll find that logging in feels just as familiar as picking up the phone used to. You might discover that some of your closest companions now include a lively baking group that posts cookie recipes, or a daily meditation app that reminds you to pause and breathe. As you begin to navigate this digital world, you'll notice that it opens doors to other pillars, like hobbies, volunteering, and even deeper health resources. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's keep walking through our 5 pillars one by one. Having embraced technology as a way to stay connected and independent, the 5th pillar we'll talk about is volunteering and purpose-driven activities. After all, one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself is knowing that your time, experience, and wisdom are valued by others. Think back for a moment to a time when you felt truly needed. Maybe you volunteered at a school reading program years ago, helping children sound out new words, or perhaps you organized a small fundraiser for a cause close to your heart. Those moments when you saw a smile on someone's face or heard a heartfelt thank you probably left you feeling uplifted and proud. And that sense of meaning doesn't have to end once you retire or slow down. In fact, it can become even richer, because now you can choose how and when to spend your time. Let's say you've always loved cooking and you find yourself with extra free hours on Monday mornings. You might volunteer at a local shelter, chopping vegetables and stirring a pot of soup while hearing stories from the staff and other volunteers about the lives you're helping. Or perhaps you partner with a community organization to provide phone calls to homebound seniors, earning gratitude simply by asking, "How are you feeling today?" Those calls can blossom into friendships that brighten both your day and theirs. The plate of homemade cookies you deliver to a neighbor you've never met might spark a conversation that blossoms into a new companionship you never anticipated. If cooking or visiting doesn't appeal, maybe you have a knack for accounting or organizing paperwork. Nonprofits often need help sorting donations, balancing budgets, or managing simple clerical tasks. You might spend an afternoon at the local library helping process book deliveries, or lend your skills to a charity auction, making sure everything is cataloged correctly. By the time you leave, you'll have the satisfying feeling that your years of experience aren't just memories, they're active contributions that keep community efforts alive. For some, purpose comes through mentoring. Imagine connecting with a young entrepreneur in your area who's just starting a small business. You meet once a month over coffee to review a business plan, share advice from your own career journey, and encourage them when obstacles arise. Those conversations can become a lifeline for someone just beginning, and at the same time, you'll gain fresh perspective and energy from their enthusiasm. It's a two-way street. While they learn from your decades of knowledge, you learn about new technologies, market trends, and the changing world of work. It keeps your mind engaged and you feeling valued. The key is to find ways to give that align with your interests and strengths. If you love animals, volunteering at an animal shelter might mean grooming dogs, walking cats, or simply spending time providing comfort. If you've been a teacher, perhaps coaching a local quiz bowl team or tutoring students in reading would feel fulfilling. And if you enjoy being outdoors, consider helping maintain a community garden, where each weed pulled or flower planted is a small victory for everyone who enjoys that space. By dedicating time to something beyond yourself, whether it's baking bread for a weekend community brunch, sewing blankets for hospital patients, or leading a small group discussion on classic literature, you're weaving your life into the fabric of those around you. You'll notice that when you walk past someone you helped feed, or when a young man sends you an email saying your advice made a difference, it rekindles an inner spark. That spark reminds you why days feel meaningful, why you wake up eager to share your gifts, and why, after 60, you're still writing chapters in a story that matters. As these acts of service become part of your routine, you might observe that volunteers you meet on the job become new friends, that community partners introduce you to even more resources, and that, occasionally, what you thought was a small gesture ends up having a ripple effect you never predicted. A single pot of soup can feed dozens when shared at a community event. A single conversation can transform a young person's confidence trajectory. A single afternoon spent cleaning up a neighborhood park can inspire families to bring their children back to enjoy the newly spruced up green space. These moments deepen your sense of belonging and remind you that this stage of life is not about slowing down or fading away. It's about continuing to shape the world with your wisdom, compassion, and energy. Volunteering doesn't have to be a major time commitment. Even small, consistent actions, like a weekly phone check-in, a monthly delivery of homemade cookies, or an hourly donation of your bookkeeping skills, pile up into something profound. Over time, you begin to realize that community engagement and volunteering aren't separate pillars. They overlap beautifully with digital tools. Perhaps you coordinate your volunteer schedule through an app. Friendships, often you serve alongside people you've grown to know and trust, and professional support. Maybe your volunteer work inspires you to pursue a short training course or workshop. By embracing both digital connection and purposeful volunteering, you're laying down two more stones in a foundation that doesn't rely solely on family. You're showing that after 60, you can still learn new things, share your skills, and arrive at every day with intention. You could, for instance, video chat a pen pal you found through an international volunteer organization one morning, then spend your afternoon planting a row of marigolds at a neighborhood park. In doing so, you're stretching your world, and discovering that life's sparkle doesn't diminish with age, it simply shifts into different, often more rewarding, channels. And so, having immersed ourselves in these fourth and fifth pillars, we've built even more momentum toward a life filled with connection, purpose, and resilience. In the next part of our conversation, we'll explore the final pillar, one that ties all the others together and reminds you why each day can still feel rich, hopeful, and fully yours. And so, having immersed ourselves in building connection through friends, community groups, professional guidance, digital tools, and volunteering, let's turn our attention to one more pillar that brings everything home: Embracing lifelong learning and personal growth. Imagine waking up and feeling curious again, maybe about something you never had time for before, like diving into a new language, exploring a creative hobby, or simply reading to understand a topic that piqued your interest years ago. This isn't about going back to school in a rigid way. It's about discovering that your mind, like the rest of you, still benefits from exercise, novelty, and purpose. Think back to when you were a child and learned something that felt magical, perhaps the first time you strummed a guitar chord or watched a butterfly open its wings and understood the beauty of nature's process. Over decades, responsibilities, routines, and even self-doubt can cloud that wonder. But now, after 60, you have something precious, the freedom to choose what sparks your curiosity without worrying about fitting into someone else's schedule. Whether it's painting with watercolors, tinkering with a simple app on your tablet, or enrolling in a local history class that meets once a month, the goal is to remember that growth doesn't stop at a certain age. Consider the story of a friend, let's call her Mary, who had always dreamed of learning French. When she was younger, life was a whirlwind of raising kids, managing a household, and working long days. Once she turned 65 and her children moved away, she enrolled in an evening class at the community college. At first, she was hesitant, worried about being the oldest person in the room, concerned that her pronunciation would sound comically off. But by the third week, as she stumbled through simple greetings with a warm smile, she found herself making friends with fellow learners of all ages. They'd laugh over their shared mispronunciations, celebrate each other's progress, and afterward, stop for coffee at a nearby cafe to chat about French culture. Not only did Mary start planning a trip to Paris to practice her skills, but she also felt the thrill of expanding her mind, of tackling something challenging and emerging stronger on the other side. Maybe languages aren't your passion. Perhaps you've always wanted to learn how to play an instrument, or you've wanted to try your hand at writing short stories, gardening techniques beyond what you know, or even dabble in simple home repairs. Each of these interests has classes, books, online tutorials, or local clubs where you can learn and practice at your own pace. The beauty is that you don't need to achieve perfection, just the willingness to try, to make a few mistakes, and to find joy in small steps. When you take that first piano lesson or write that first paragraph of a story, no matter how rough it feels, you're sending a powerful message to yourself and to those around you. I still have room to grow, to explore, and to delight in new experiences. Of course, lifelong learning connects back to our other pillars too. Remember that digital skills we talked about? They come in handy when you access an online tutorial on watercolor techniques or watch a TED Talk about astrophysics. You might pick up your tablet and Skype with a tutor who guides you through basic chords on a ukulele, or join a virtual book club that meets each month to discuss a novel you probably never would have picked up otherwise. Your friendships deepen when you talk about these shared pursuits, like comparing notes on a pottery project or teaming up with a neighbor to plant a vegetable garden guided by a new reading. Your community involvement can even grow. Maybe your local library invites you to lead a lifelong learner discussion once a quarter, where you share what you've discovered with others eager to broaden their horizons. Embracing personal growth also means acknowledging and tending to the emotional and spiritual side of life. It might look like carving out 15 minutes each morning to meditate, reflect on what you're grateful for, or simply breathe deeply before beginning the day. Perhaps you revisit a faith you've held dear, finding new meaning in rituals you once took for granted, or you explore mindfulness exercises that help you calm worries that arise when sleep eludes you. This gentle self-awareness strengthens your emotional resilience and reminds you that growth isn't always measured in degrees or diplomas. It's often measured in moments of clarity, compassionate self-talk, and the courage to say, I deserve this time for myself. Some people find fulfillment in creative endeavors. Take, for example, the idea of keeping a journal, not to record daily to-dos, but to pour out thoughts, dreams, and memories onto the page. You might find yourself writing that letter to your younger self you always meant to pen, or describing a memory of your childhood home with vivid detail that slowly transforms into a short memoir. Others discover that painting, sketching, or crafting becomes a form of meditation, where the act of creating brings calm and focus in a way that words sometimes can't capture. And the great part is, your creations don't need to be displayed in galleries. They can simply sit on a shelf or hang on a refrigerator, reminding you that your inner world is as rich and colorful as ever. Of course, personal growth isn't always sunshine and rainbows. There may be days when learning something new feels frustrating or when you question whether it's worth the effort. That's when it helps to remember the pillars we've built already. A friend from your walking group might encourage you when you feel stuck on a new knitting stitch. A community mentor might share their own story of trial and error when they took up photography at 70. Your physical therapist might remind you how learning new movements helped you avoid pain, and your volunteer colleagues might witness the spark in your eyes when you talk about your latest watercolor painting. These reminders that you're supported, that growth isn't a solo journey, carry you through the moments of doubt. As your curiosity blossoms, you may even discover that giving back through mentoring or teaching becomes a new extension of this pillar. Perhaps after mastering basic computer skills yourself, you offer to help other seniors navigate online banking. Maybe after learning simple ceramics, you volunteer to assist at a local art workshop for people with limited mobility. Suddenly, the line between learner and teacher blurs, and you find yourself inspiring others just as you were inspired. That feeling, that you can still light someone else's way, is profoundly uplifting and reminds you that growth is not a destination, but a continuous, shared adventure. Now, as we draw this conversation to a close, let's take a moment to allow these 6 pillars, friendships, community involvement, professional wellness support, digital connection, volunteering, and lifelong learning, to settle in our minds like stones laid carefully to build a path. Each one carries its own weight, its own purpose, but they interlock beautifully to create a foundation stronger than any single support. When family can't be there in person, you'll have friends to laugh with, community events to enliven your week, professionals to guide your health, digital tools to bridge distances, volunteer opportunities to fill your heart, and the thrill of discovering something new to keep your spirit vibrant. As you move forward on this path, remember that you are the one building it, one conversation at a time, one shared laugh, one new skill, one helping hand. There's no need to rush or conquer every idea at once. Rather, pick the pillar that calls to you today. Maybe this week you send that email to join an online knitting group or sign up for a gentle yoga class at the senior center. Maybe you call a friend you haven't spoken to in months, or you set aside time to sketch a flower from your garden. Perhaps you schedule a telehealth appointment to discuss a nagging backache, or you reach out to a local shelter to ask if they need volunteers. Each small step you take doesn't simply check a box, it weaves a thread into a tapestry of support, belonging, and purpose. If you've been watching this video and something here resonates, perhaps a spark of excitement, or even a little apprehension, let that be your sign. Take a breath, find the one thing that feels just a bit easier to try, and give it a go. Along the way, share your experiences in the comments below. Tell us what pillar you're leaning into, what successes you've celebrated, or what challenges you've faced. Your story might encourage someone else to take that first step. And if you found value in this conversation, please give the video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. That way, every time we explore new ways to live fully after 60, you'll be right there with us. Thank you for taking this time to invest in yourself, your curiosity, your well-being, and your dreams. Here's to walking this path together, discovering strength in connections beyond family, and living each day with curiosity, compassion, and joy. You've got everything you need to build a life after 60 that's not only secure but absolutely full of possibility.